Good morning.
Good morning.
It's been said that the two most important days of your life are the day that you're born and the day you figure out why. I disagree with that statement. The reason I disagree is because that statement would lead you to believe that you figure it out one day, it's a one and done understanding, you have clarity, and you never question or have doubts again. And that has not been my experience. When I was growing up in Denton, Texas, I had a good but imperfect village because, you know, family is complicated. So my parents married young. My mother was 16 and my father was 18 when they had my oldest brother, Sam, and got married. 3 years later, they had my middle older brother, John, and then 4 years after that, I came along. But by the time I came along, the relationship was already on the rocks. And so my parents separated when I was a year old. When I was 4 years old, we experienced a house fire, and we ended up moving in with my father's parents that we affectionately called Mamaw and Pete. So what was supposed to be a temporary move with my grandparents went from weeks to months to years. And this was a hard move for me. I had always been a mama's baby, as they said. I look still, then and now, just like my mom. I saw my parents, but they were inconsistent in my life. And though I was the youngest of the three, and I was the only girl, I didn't feel special or particularly noticed by anyone. I didn't feel seen or significant. My grandparents were good, solid, hardworking people, but they were also very no-nonsense. My grandmother could be very critical. And I missed the nurturing ways of my mom and the playful ways of my dad. And growing up in Denton and growing up in my family, we didn't spend much time talking about dreams, purpose, gifts, or significance, but I longed for more. So my first awakening on my purpose journey happened when I was 23 years old. It was Valentine's Day weekend. I had plans with my boo at the time, but God had different plans for me that weekend. So I was living on my own in Dallas. I was working my first professional job in accounting, and I had, as I said, planned to have a date with my significant other. That ended up being a no-go. But God used that weekend to reveal to me that he had a deep love for me, that he had always seen me. I had always been significant to him, that he had always valued me, that he had purpose for me, that he had placed gifts in me, and that he had great plans for my life. I hated my accounting job at that time, and I realized I wanted to do something helping people. Through a volunteer opportunity, I connected with the CEO of a major real estate company in Dallas. He was looking for someone to help him launch his nonprofit focused on the South Dallas Fair Park community. He liked that I was coming from a business background, and God opened that door for me. I thought, yes, I'm living a life of purpose. It was the opportunity of a lifetime for a season. Fast forward 8 years later, and I was driving into the parking garage of our downtown office. It was a sunny, warm day in June, but my mood was dark. I was dreading going inside. I used to have this exercise where I would call my coworker from the car, and I'd be in the parking garage, but I'd be saying, Tab, isn't there somewhere else I should be? Is there another meeting? Is there another site visit I need to do? Is there something, anything to delay me from going into the office? So we go through that exercise. But after I'd exhausted all possibilities, I would drag myself up to our 33rd floor office, fake smile in place. On this particular day, the executive director called me into the conference room. And he didn't have his normal warm disposition. He had a few papers in front of him, and he got straight to the point. My position was being eliminated. I didn't want to be there anymore, but I couldn't believe they were eliminating my position. After the instrumental role I had played in launching that organization and helping it grow to where it was, and I was being eliminated as if it was nothing. I left the meeting and I found myself packing up a box of my belongings, 8 years worth of stuff that I accumulated while I was there. I felt hurt, I felt frustrated, and I felt insignificant. And I really thought, I've been trying to live a life of purpose, so why is this happening to me? But God was teaching me valuable lessons. He was helping me to understand that I needed to redefine my understanding of purpose. I thought, kind of like that saying I mentioned at the beginning, you discover your purpose at one point in life and you've got it all figured out and it's a straight line to your destiny. I've heard people say that defining your purpose is a matter of answering that question of why do I exist? But that's a weighty question for a finite human being to answer. The truth is, God doesn't reveal the entirety of his plans and purposes for us at any one point in time. He is multi-layered and complex, and he designed us that way as well. So to try to narrow your purpose to a single understanding at a point in time can be way too limiting, and it can rob us of peace and joy. Instead, the best way to understand purpose is in seasons. And I now have a simplified definition of purpose. I think of it in terms of how do I make life better for others, whatever season I'm in, whatever situation I'm in. So now, back to that day, I found myself packing up my box of belongings. I had no idea what God's plans were at that point. It was a scary place and it didn't feel purposeful at all. But do you know what God did after that? That very same night, I got my first consulting gig. I would go on from that point to have a full-time independent consulting practice for the next 7 years. During that same period of time, I began taking international mission trips, and I led 2 mission trips, one to Ghana and one to Kenya. The trip to Kenya was a trip that my church took with Buckner International. And through that single mission trip and the connections that were made on that trip, a door was opened for me, and I've been employed with Buckner for the last 12 years. In my time with Buckner, I've had various leadership positions, and I've been able to travel as a part of my job on their dime to Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Ethiopia, and Kenya. My current position is focused domestically, but I lead 9 Family Hope Centers all over the state of Texas. These are things I never imagined for myself when I was growing up in Denton, Texas. And I certainly didn't imagine them that day I was packing up my box of belongings. So my message to you, as I often have to also remind myself, is that though it's confusing and frustrating and hurtful, and sometimes you feel stuck, you can look back at how far God has brought you and be confident that he will continue to reveal your next chapter of purpose. And so no matter where you are in your purpose journey, there are some things that remain true. Number 1, you are seen and significant. Number 2, you really are God's gift to the world. And number 3, God's plans and purposes for you will always be grander than your understanding. So stay encouraged, sis.